Set pencil on. Good evening. I'd like to call this meeting to order. Let's start off with the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. A couple of quick announcements. Mr. Gilbert, both he and his family are under the weather, and Mrs. Hoffman is attending one event with her kids. She should be back before the meeting ends. At this point, can I have a motion to adopt an agenda? Mr. Rajat first, Gianna second. All in favor? All right, I'll turn it over to Superintendent's comments.
Sure. Just want to, I know our students reps aren't supposed to be here. Just want them to come forward briefly. Ladies, the queue. Only reason why, because they had a pretty special event for the first time in a long time here at Shen, and I just want them to share with the board briefly.
Thank you. So this past Saturday, the SFA Senate held its first Lights Out dance. There were over 200 in attendance, and we made a profit off of it. It was a wild night. And we'll look into doing it again next year.
This is the first time in a long time.
Yeah, it was our record-selling, most successful event that we've held in a while. Yeah. Thank you.
Awesome, guys.
Appreciate it. All right, thank you. My additional comments only pertain to the upcoming School Boards Convention, starting for board members on Thursday. Personally, myself, I'll be going down tomorrow afternoon because I'm presenting first thing Thursday morning on a panel, first thing Friday morning on a panel, first thing Saturday morning on a panel. So for whatever reason, they must think, as someone said today, that must be the wake-up person that everybody gets excited about to come and listen to. So they put me at 8 o'clock in the morning. Or maybe no one wants to listen to me, so therefore they put me at 8 o'clock in the morning. Who knows? So we're pretty excited about the School Boards Convention. Always a great opportunity for board members. Most importantly, in front of each board member is a nice arrangement. And this week is School Boards Recognition Week. And certainly, I would like just to pause to personally extend my appreciation. And even though Mr. Gilbert and Mrs. Hoffman isn't here, they also had a similar arrangement. But to extend my personal appreciation for this board, who has been tremendously supportive of my leadership, and more importantly, on behalf of the entire Shen community. I'm often asked, what's the secret to our success as a school district? And I always say it starts at the top. It starts at the top with a Board of Education that always has a forward-thinking vision, a Board of Education that's willing to weigh options and find the best options, and more importantly, a Board of Education that's very unwavering in their commitment to always try to do things in the best interest of our students first. And so I want to say, on behalf of the entire Shen community, not only the school, but our broader Shen community, thank you for your tremendous service. I don't think people realize the amount of time that you put into your service. People see you at a board meeting and think that's the extent of the time. But certainly, I know for sure it goes well beyond that. So I want to thank you, and it's just a simple token of our appreciation as a community to say thank you very much. And it's because of your leadership that we are a great school district. So thank you very much. So we have 3 presentations tonight. Should be relatively brief. And this is how we try to update the board on many different things. As Dr. Wood comes forward, you'll hear that, oftentimes people think about the school from September to June. And we have a whole different season that happens from July to September, with many, many things happening over the course of the summer. And we always like to provide that update to the board and also that update to the public, so people have appreciation of the magnitudes of program and services that's rendered to our students that extends the school year into the summer. So Dr. Wood.
Exactly right. Probably the best way, of course, now I think of it, I wish I thought of it 3 days ago, would be to do an overall total of the number of students impacted by the folks who are going to follow me, because I'm quite convinced, probably beyond the hundreds of students impacted by the work of these folks in the summer. And so I'm going to ask that each one of them share their name and the program that they lead in the summer, and maybe even during the 10-month job that they do, because many of them kind of go outside of their 10-month job to lead one of these summer programs. And then they will provide some highlights and some of the updates. And really, I think it's pretty impressive what we offer to students in the summer. So we'll let Mr. D'Ambro take it away.
Good evening. I'm Scott D'Ambro. I'm the Summer Literacy Coordinator for the summers. I truly enjoy and I'm honored to do this position for many, many years. What we do is we have the Summer Literacy, which is approximately around 260 children from all elementary schools in the district, K all the way to 4 or 5-ish. We have the Summer Literacy, we have the ENL, and this year, very excitingly, is the new pilot Jumpstart Kindergarten program, which was extremely successful as well. Within our program, the children are sent to us via all of our teachers and staff at Shenendehowa, those who are the most neediest and really need that little boost of confidence, little extra practice, and more togetherness to work together to learn how to read. And also to socialize and learn that they're not the only ones that struggle. So we learn from each other as well. We do reading, writing, and math in small groups. Sometimes teachers team teach, depending on what the children need. The whole program is based on what do the children need. And from there we go forward. Again, we've been extremely successful where we have every week letters to parents, newsletters, very informative to let them know what their child does and what they need so that we incorporate our community and families as well. And at the end of the program, we send all of our information to the teachers in the fall so that these teachers can get right off to the start with these children who have special needs and special services that would help them become more successful and confident in their programming this year. Thank you.
Thanks, Scott.
Thank you for your time. My name is Adam Sweet. I teach English as a new language at Aranjan and Shadakan, grades 3, 4, and 5, and I also direct the summer program. The main problem, well, one of the problems we have, one of the challenges we have is that in September, our English as a new language students come to school and they have not really been immersed in English for the prior summer, and our program mainly helps with that. We provide listening, speaking, reading, writing support. This population, we want them to succeed in September. During the summer, we will support mainly K-1-2. That is the emphasis, but 3, 4, 5, and up to now K through 12 is also supported. The languages are wide-ranging. There's not one large cluster of everyone speaks Spanish or everyone speaks. Clifton Park is a very diverse place now. And our program has expanded every single year that I've come here. It is going to continue to expand because the need is so great. And thank you for your support, and I hope to come back next year and say that we've added more teachers and more students. And also one final thought: the transportation office is vital to our success, and I never thank them. They're always helpful because our students are sometimes a challenge. They get on the bus, and the bus driver might not know that they don't speak English. And so the transportation office has always been helpful and very supportive. When we call them, they always drop what they do and help very, very quickly. So, question.
You mentioned the drop-off they had in performance over the summer because of not being in school. And I see that the programs are designed to help that. But not every student that could benefit, well, they could all benefit, but especially those who have the greatest challenges, not every one of them can or would be able to attend one of these programs. I'm personally not aware, I'm sure that you are one way or the other, aware of whether we do something to work with parents to provide them with materials, some general background or whatever, to encourage that at home, even though they might not be able to get to school for that program. Do we have such an effort?
Well, I think English as a new language teachers on their own, like there's no one set up program for that, but at the end of the school year, English as a new language teachers know that some students will come to our program during the summer, others may not, and we try to set up parents with, the school has several licenses for wonderful websites and programs that the students can access from home, if they have the internet, or maybe we set them up with the library card and access, we will either send material home or give them access through computers or, do what we can, yeah. But there's no one program.
I just want to see if Sarah Toffey, who heads up our program, come Sarah. No, if she wants, because it's a great question that Mr. DeLello asked, and I think it's a question that also speaks to our global approach to all students, because not every student who's identified actually attend this program. So I think this you're trying to get to. So globally, what are we doing to address that?
And I think Adam answered it perfectly. One of the things that we can really leverage is technology. That's one thing that we can use. There's so many programs and things that kids can do over the summer, even if their parents don't speak English, and we can leverage that, and we do that quite a bit. We have a lot of students who travel and go back to, see family in other countries in the summer, and so that's one of the reasons that a lot of students don't take part in the program, but we're definitely seeing an increase in the number of kids that do. So, but I think the technology piece is a really big part of it. And also, a lot of our ENL teachers communicate with families over the summer as well, even if they're not in the program, so for lots of reasons. You covered most of it. Did we miss anything else?
Did we address your question, Gary?
Yeah,
It's a great question.
we're making the effort.
Yeah, we are. But it's a great question, and one that we can think about a little bit more in terms of, what we're doing K-12 for kids at all levels. So thank you for the question.
Thank you both. Thanks. So just perfect cue. He walks in from the concert. Mr. Roselli and Mrs. Lee Alden.
Still catching my breath. Thank you. That timing couldn't have been more perfect. So thanks for giving me the opportunity to just highlight a little bit about what happened this summer in summer school. First, and one of the most critical things, is that this is the first year we were able to provide transportation for all kids attending the program. So there was a lot of problem solving to be had, as with any time you do something new. But if you look at the total number of riders in that bottom corner, 3,254, that's not a unique number, but that is the total number of passengers that were on those buses for 22 days of summer school. So I think that's pretty impressive in year one. You can look at the daily average. Some of those are high, some of those are low. We have some work to do in terms of redistributing those and having some conversations with transportation on our team to see if we're utilizing those 11 buses most effectively and how we redistribute them if we're not. As you know, our geographic span is quite large, so running less than 11 gets pretty difficult, and who knows how long kids will be on buses to make that happen. So overall, we're very happy with this, though admittedly, year two, we have some room for improvement, and hopefully to get the word out even more and see those numbers go up. So that's the first thing. And then we worked on improving student access. So transportation obviously is a step in that direction. Because Chromebooks are being rolled out in all secondary levels, we tried to increase the number that we had on site. We brought in 90. They were used every minute of every day, plus the 2 computer labs. So technology was a big help. In addition, we brought in food service and accessed free and reduced meal plans for kids, which was not occurring in the past. And as you can see, 566 instances of free breakfast over 22 days and 609 instances of free lunch over those 22 days. And then, of course, there are some kids who paid full price and reduced. So we were also, let me say this, I knew those numbers were going to be high. They were higher than I anticipated. So what that says is some of our neediest kids in all facets of life attend summer school. And when, on the next slide, when you see our results, I don't know that they blow you away in comparison to years past, but I think common sense tells us if we give kids the tools to be successful, we've got a better chance at helping them get through and succeed. And then, of course, the Bountiful Backpack Program, about 18 backpacks per week. So that's a program during the year that extended into the summer. And then lastly, this is just an overview of what we offered. 21 courses, 32 sections, so 21 unique courses. Some of those were offered twice, depending on enrollments. 251 unique students enrolled in summer school classes. We accessed 153 kids in Regents Review classes, 12 sections of that offered. You can see the enrollment by grade. 230 Regents exams were taken. That means not necessarily unique kids, but 230 exams administered. And then 121 of those scored 65 or better. So just over 50% there, which is consistent with years past. And then most impressively, 11 seniors graduated who otherwise would be repeating. So this is Lee Alden. Did I miss anything?
No, I think you hit things really well. We need to thank Katie Hadwell, though, because she was really integral in us getting that summer meal program going. That meant extra work for her in terms of time and paperwork, and also to Al Karam, because being the first time we ran the bus program, he really, at a moment's notice, he and his staff could give us a bus number if we had to get a kid on a bus, and we find out at 12:06.
Right. Yeah. Well said.
Questions? Thank you both. Thank you.
Thank you.
Great program. Mrs. Smadlon, doesn't look like Mr. Ritchie.
Yes, I am not Mr. Ricci. He was unable to attend tonight, but Mr. Aaron Ricci is the special education summer school principal, K through 12. He is an academic intervention teacher at Shattuck who holds his administrative degree. He also had an intern this year working with him, Mr. Charlie Richter, who is a teacher from Saratoga, which was very helpful because our program runs K through 21, which means we have a program at either Shattuck or Orangen. It was at Orangen this year. And then we have our secondary program at High School West. We were able to work with Mr. Roselli to secure space in that building, which helps with clerical support, and it helps consolidate nursing services and just provides that extra supervision. In addition, of course, East was not available, but in the past we have sometimes gone to East. So it's very helpful to have that intern to have supervision on both sites. So the special education program is designed for students to prevent substantial regression. It's also for students who, because of their needs, require a very structured program for 12 months of the year to maintain their level of skill. The decision for students to go to the special education summer program is determined by the Committee on Special Education. So it's a recommendation made by the teacher and ultimately by the committee. Parents have the option then of sending their students. So we had approximately 340 students recommended, and I believe we had somewhere around 260 attend. Everything is theme-based, so learning is fun. Each teacher comes with their own creative ideas about what they'll do each week so that they can then tie academics and social skill into that. And we also have our community skills development program, which is our 18 to 21. In the summer, it is really for students in 9th grade through 21, and they do a lot of activities with the younger students. They organize social and educational events with the younger students to expand their skill set. Any questions on special education?
Thank you, Mrs. Smadlon. This is some pictures from that program. And certainly Mr. Conover.
Hi, I'm John Conover, coordinator for Shen Summer Adventure. I'm going to tell you a little bit about our program this year in 2018. Again, another successful program. You can see we ran 9 programs this year. Many of the programs, our enrollments, were almost identical to last year. And a lot of our programs within themselves had a lot of new offerings that were really engaging for kids, and the kids had a lot of fun. And first bringing 1,400 kids back to Shen in the summer is an accomplishment in and of itself, and we're really proud of that, and we keep growing and growing and growing. But one of the things that, you look back at, we're on a point where we're running these programs for a lot of years now, and we have some new people that are coming on board, and we're saying, people are emailing me all the time, can I start a new program? We have a couple of younger programs coming up in the works right now, trying to get some STEAM, with science, math, engineering, technology, in the works. And, when you look back at these programs, what I like to do is reflect on them. So I kind of did this year. This is one of those years where you see your programs grow, and you see your kids happy, and you see them functioning at a high level, so you want to reflect. And if you can look at some of the programs and some of the things that we're doing, you can see, I took some time today and I spent some time looking at the document, the Shen profile document, and looking at all of those different attributes that go down the line. And I look at our programs and I see all the great things that our kids are doing. And the fact that they're coming back in the summertime to get all those things that we really want from them during the school year, to kind of enhance that programming and enhance that ability for them to get out of their shell and try new things and really be engaged, which is our theme this year, it seems like. So we want to make sure that, we're doing that consistently in the summertime, and it's really, really doing well. One of the big things that I did notice this year was, from a big picture standpoint as well, we had over 75 high school kids come back to volunteer in this program. And upon reflecting on that many kids coming back and giving up their entire day to volunteer to make these programs successful, it makes me think that, we're doing something right. Because that first critical attribute on the document is, of course, to be responsible, caring individuals. What better evidence of responsible, caring individuals than these high school kids coming back to a program they went to when they were younger and making it a better program for the kids younger than them? So upon reflection, looking at those things, it really looks like we're doing something different, doing things the right way, and making sure that, these kids are becoming good citizens. That's what we really want, the big picture goal.
John, what's your capacity? I mean, where down the road is there? Where can you grow to? You got 1,400. What's your, what is the? If you ever had to say, we got to stop, or
That's a great question. I don't know. I mean, that's something that we definitely want. We definitely want to think about, because we are doing just such a kids are keep coming back. I mean, many of these programs are filled to capacity, where it's like where people are calling me and saying, hey, can I get in? We only have enough certain staffing, a certain amount of people, and that we just keep growing and growing. So that's a great question that we kind of want to try to look at and tackle and figure out where we're going to make sure that we're providing for these kids. But the good news is teachers are calling me. I'd like to start a program. What do I do to start a program? How do I do this? So we're growing kind of from the inside out. And hopefully that will support what we're doing in the future for our program.
Great job, John.
Yes.
So for those
Sure.
kids that call and you're at capacity,
Yes.
certain sections or
Sure.
certain
Sure.
activities, do you refer them to other ones that may not be filled?
Yes.
And do you ever get to the point where you almost have a wait list? That's what I'm curious.
Yes. Yes. It's.
So what is that? Out of curiosity, the wait list, if you have one.
Well, we don't officially have a wait list. You know what I mean? It's one of those things where we just can't support that right now from a registration standpoint, of where we're going. Otherwise, it would be 35, 40 deep, for some of these programs. So it's in our electronic program doesn't, it supports that, but we're not there yet with it. But for the most part, a lot of the times kids will get what they want. They'll have some kids, say, oh, I can't make it, but some will just kind of slide them in or find an appropriate thing for them. And, they're always the people that register first the following year. So they're like, I want to get in this program really fast. And so we're building a good buzz, and we have a great popularity, and we're bringing kids back here. One final thing I just want to say, and I don't want to take up too much time, but of course, I just want to say, if you see these two individuals, I just wanted to make a mention that Al and Heather Green have been running programs in our district for 25 years. And they informed me this year that this is going to be their last year running a summer program. And, for making kids believe in themselves for all these years, making kids reach their potential and exceed their own expectations, being those role models that we want for our kids to be good citizens and to go do and give back and do all these great things that they're doing, I just think is just a wonderful thing. And I wanted to kind of tell everybody here that you see Al and Heather, every time I see him, I thank him both of them, for all that they've done throughout the years for kids. And I think they know it, but I thought it was appropriate for, as they told me this year, I wanted to make a mention of, all the hard work that they've done over the years. So if you see them, please mention that to them as well. So, yes?
Not part of our program, probably. The RPI STEM program for our young ladies.
Mhm.
Do we capture information about the number of our students that participate in that? And do we support it to any degree in terms of perhaps transportation or anything like
No,
that?
that's totally RPI based. So we don't, for those questions, we don't. And I can get some numbers, but I don't have offhand. So this is also a program that's regional wide.
Right.
So, yeah, but I can try to get some information.
Any other questions? Well, I can't wait to come back and give you more good news next year. Thank you very much.
So a lot of student-oriented program, but we also have programs for the big students. And so Mrs. Sugarman will give us an overview of some of the curriculum work, professional development work that takes place in the summer.
So this is the 6th year, it was the 6th summer, that we had Summer Academy for teachers. And this was an innovation. A number of years ago, came up with the idea of why don't we offer things in the summer? Teachers don't have to write lesson plans. They don't have to secure a substitute. They're not missing time from their kids. They are missing time from their own kids. In some cases, they're paying for babysitting to attend these courses. But this year we had, I think, 44 total courses were offered and almost 300 teachers attended. So we have people that I put out a welcome, please come in and join us and offer a course early in the year, probably around April, asking teachers if they have something that they feel they can contribute back to the profession that other teachers may need or be interested in, that we're more than willing to support them. And we look through, Elizabeth, Dr. Wood looks through it also to see are these courses that are viable for Summer Academy. So with that, we have John Bullington and Gail Petrofessa and now Vanessa Kramer are all teaching coursework in the summer with regard to technology. And then we also have Julie Bernetter, and she did a lot of work this summer with C3, the inquiry units that are new for social studies. And we actually, I believe Kathleen brought in a trainer, Kate Hesla, I want to say, to do training with teachers to bring them into a new way of thinking about teaching and learning in social studies. So we have technology, we have content-based things, we have E&L offered a plethora of classwork this summer for teachers so that they could actually get their 15 hours that they're required for the professional certification if they wanted to do that. And another new thing that I tried this summer was Google Classroom running online classes. So we ran 3 of those and it was really successful. I had to be the person checking in and seeing how they did, but they were able again to get E&L credit. The class that was on the Metropolitan Museum of Art allowed an interdisciplinary look at lessons that are on the Met site for teacher educators, and it was just amazing some of the feedback that we got on those type of things. So Summer Academy runs 3 weeks out of the summer, the last week of June, the second week of July, the third week of July, and the second week of August. So yeah, it's really, I'm very happy, and I think we'll just keep going with that one. It works well. The next piece, I just wanted to circle back too, is that we really worked with profile of an engaged classroom too with these things. All the coursework that we did fits in perfectly with that to align with that. That came out in March at Superintendent's Conference Day. The other piece that we had this summer was the curriculum work. So every summer, the academic administrators determine what they are going to need with regard to summer work. The curriculum maps have to be updated to really have a viable curriculum. And we have to have consensus among teachers. So teachers come in and are paid an hourly rate to go ahead and work on certain projects. So there was a lot of work with eDoctrina assessments this year because we're trying to increase the use of eDoctrina for common assessments, as well as other assessments that can give teachers immediate feedback as to how students are performing on a particular skill set or content area, so that then they, in turn, can shift their classroom practice and respond to student needs, right? So eDoctrina is very powerful, and there was a lot of work with that. And then also the inquiry units were worked on, and then there were certain units of study that were written to support the classroom, of an engaged classroom, the profile of an engaged classroom, that we wanted to make sure that that was being looked at. So those are the kind of things we did this summer. So we thank you for your support, because the things that when I'm with students, I just love hearing what happens here at Shenendehowa. It's just wonderful that we put that little bit of air under their wings and keep them going. And then with the teachers, we're trying to do the same, to give them the opportunity to gather together and learn together and be students. So thank you for your support. Thank you.
I always got a question.
Oh, you can have a question, Gary, for yours. I'm totally up with that.
I was just wondering how much of, both the professional development and the course curriculum type development is driven by the new statewide standards.
Oh my gosh. So a lot of the work is pushed by that. I mean, let me see. I don't know if I want to say push. I want to say it's raising us up, right? It's really raising us up to think about learning in a very different way, more student-centered. And so, yes, we have NISLIS is in, the new standards with science, that we're going to see even more and more this coming year. Teachers have actually lesson plan formats that they're using that support them in implementing those standards. We had the framework for social studies was out a couple of years ago, and we actually had to create a whole series of MAT templates with Atlas curriculum to shift it so that we could meet those standards and have it in understandable language for teachers for planning purposes. And it continues with math and ELA. And I think as we move forward, the next thing I see on the horizon is the CTE piece. We'll see a shift with business and facts, right? And technology. We'll see a big shift with that. We may have to recreate some templates for them also as we move forward. So absolutely, that they are lifting us up and raising us up to be more student-centered. And really the bottom line is that we talked about differentiation years ago when I first came to the district, right? And it's more than differentiation. It's really individualizing instruction to meet the needs of each and every student. And sometimes as educators, it makes us step back and question our practices. But we know that the number one is serving the students and what they need.
Are we still in the statewide moratorium for use of standard scores for various applications like?
Under APPR, you mean?
Mhm.
For evaluation? Yes, the moratorium still says.
For assessment?
Yes.
Teacher assessment?
Yes.
basically.
Yeah. Thank you, Gary. Good question. Thank you so much.
So clearly you see a lot of things happen in the summertime here, and I want to thank all our presenters for coming tonight. And it's an important update to the board, so we certainly appreciate that very much. The next two things belongs to me, yet Kathy's name is there. One of the things just wanted to share very briefly with the board, and I stand to be consistent with protocols here. Some while back we've been talking about looking at our enrollments, and the study session in November we'll have a presentation by our consultant to talk about enrollment forecast. We've noticed imbalance and a growing imbalance, particularly at the elementary level. And so wanted to start thinking about, okay, if we were to go down the road of redistricting, and I want to qualify this by saying this is very, very preliminary in a thought process, so I don't want anyone to go out and say, oh my God, Shen is redistricting right away. This is something that we have to plan for because it is a long-term process. So consider this almost like a preliminary feasibility look at redistricting. So I just wanted to kind of share some thoughts on the last time we did this in a comprehensive way was 07, 08. So our boundaries held pretty well when you consider almost a 10-year period now since we went through the redistricting process. So a big part of that too is the work of the Futures Committee. So we have a Futures Committee. Mrs. Stevenson and Mr. Delalo sits on the Futures Committee with various individuals from the municipalities that understand everything from building growth to economic development to enrollment trends. So we have a lot of experts that we try to bring in for the Futures Committee. As part of here, there's some things we look at, everything from demographics to building economic development. And then ultimately, this committee will make some recommendations to the board. And so those recommendations will hit everything from potential land purchase. We've been talking about the land sale, land purchase, to formation of a committee that may look at redistricting, how we looked at particularly K-8, because we look at both elementary level and middle school level, as well as potential capital projects as we move forward. So again, it's pretty broad, comprehensive view that this Futures Committee will take a look at. When we start talking about redistricting, one of the things that will happen when we get down that road is offering some suggestions to the board in terms of criteria, identifying some issues related to enrollment imbalance that we want to make sure that we solve not only short term but long term. Provide feedback in terms of how long do we think this should hold. As I said, when we did this some years ago, we were thinking 6 to 8, and now we're up to 10 to 12. So certainly long-term viability of the plans become important. And then look at everything from attendance boundaries, and then finally some recommendation coming to the board for approval. So I share this particularly with the board and for board members who weren't on the board in '07 to have an appreciation that this is a pretty extensive process before we get to even deciding that we're going to engage in the process, much less the process itself. So I just want to share that kind of sequence. Some objectives we try to do when we think about redistricting is certain sustainable boundaries. Ideally about 10 years, because we don't want to create disruptions often for schools, for families, for children. So the enrollment balance is a big part of it. Looking at the academic programs and supports to make sure that we have parity across our buildings as we look at programs and supports, and also to maximize the configuration of our facilities and our staff. So a big part of that goes to redistricting. So these are some of the objectives when we think about redistricting that we try to address. Some other criteria that comes into play is the sibling factor. I have a sibling in one school, but if I redistrict, my other sibling goes to another school. So how do we try to grandfather in as much as possible, considering those prior objectives that I mentioned before? That's the reason why those were before, because everything else kind of juxtaposed against those criteria, if you will. So that's a big piece of it. The sibling factor is a big piece of it. Trying to keep similar neighborhoods together as much as you can. Recognizing that sometimes neighborhoods are large and may have to be split by some what we call natural barriers, such as a major highway that runs through certain developments or things of that nature, roadway, I'm sorry. And then we also look at the feasibility of transportation, always one of those things that comes into play, because we certainly don't want a bus driving through a particular development to go to drop kids to another school when there's a school even closer to that particular development. So some of those kind of things that goes into play. And all this too, our goal is to try to do this within our current capacity as much as we can before going outside of that capacity, be it routes, additional expenses, or otherwise. So we look at all those type things as we move forward.
Relative to that, the last time we did it, Lorraine Longhurst and Joe Nicolella co-chaired this thing, and Joe is already retired. I can't remember what Lorraine's status was. I think she was phasing out. And just knowing how much work they had to do, I really think that despite the additional expense, that so that you can preserve your time and everybody else that's already loaded up in central administration, we really have to look to bring somebody in to run that. Because virtually a full-time job.
Lorraine Longhurst was the equivalent of Becky Carmen now. In her position at that time. Joe Nicolella was a former administrator at Shen. And so we brought Joe back, and he worked pretty extensively with Lorraine. One of the things that we already started doing, we also have we have the name of the transportation outfit. I'm drawing blank here. Versatran. Versatran is who we contract with for transportation now, that literally has the maps of every kid in our system, and so they were instrumental in that process as well. So on the agenda, I think the next business agenda, there'll be a contract, actually maybe it's been the last one before, for Versatran, so they can start looking at some of the data. So this is, back to Mr. Delato's point, my job at this point is to overlay the parameters and then try to figure out who are the right parties, particularly when we get into the redistricting phase of it, and having people who can oversee the everyday operations of it, because It's not one of those things that you do a couple hours here, a couple hours there, type things. You can't provide the type of service to that process as you can. So at some point, that recommendation probably will be coming forward to the board in terms of how do we really manage that process. So this point is trying to get the board some sense of when we go down this road, the type of things that would drive the process, so to speak. Just to continue here. So some of the primary, we look at a lot of, and we're looking at some of this now as a part of the Futures Committee's report. We look at a lot of information sources. Certainly the work from Versatran is going to be a critical piece of it. The enrollment forecast that the board will hear in November will be a critical piece of it. And then a lot of information that we're trying to gather now through the Futures Committee. So this is how the Futures Committee's work go into providing background, if you will, details for once we start looking at potential redistricting. So a lot of work that looks at everything from where we're going in housing to empty nester impact to a lot of critical information. So I just want to give this a flavor so the board can understand. Last time, so this in 2005 this was what, when I came here, this was our boundary. So you can see, you see Tasago was split, some Tasago coming from there, some Tasago coming from there. You see some Scano, you see, so it's kind of all over the place. And so, quite frankly with you, there was a question about the rhyme and reason as to why some of these things were split. And the big issue that drove it, ironically, was in fact Tasago. Tasago was upwards of 700 kids. And so that was one of those things we thought, whoa, that's a problem. And so ironically, Tasago is now at sub 400 kids. So it's an interesting piece. And so we've spent a lot of time looking at the boundaries, and this becomes important because, so this is what we currently live with now, boundary-wise, and these boundaries drive into the respective elementary schools. So let's just give you a flavor of a lot of movement to try to make it a little bit more logical. As you see, for instance, this green, this piece was cut out here, but it's associated to here. And so I'm sure whoever did this had their thoughts. And clearly this was driven by, excuse me, I keep hitting the wrong button here. This was driven by those criteria that we mentioned before to try to make, at least from a standpoint of someone looking, it makes sense. That why wouldn't that make sense, and what are some of the natural boundaries? So we'll be looking at this as much as we possibly can to try to keep some of these things, and so it creates a ripple effect. So for instance, if we do anything with Chango, it impacts Carrigon. If we impact Carrigon, it impacts Arenda. And so you see how the ripple effect goes through all the time as we move forward. Mr. Donato.
There's one other thing that we haven't even listed as some of the possibilities, and I don't mean to give you apoplexy, but reconfiguration. You know, for instance, creating capacity if we need it by moving, well, either moving fifth grade out or, you know, creating another middle school as opposed to another approach to creating capacity in the elementary school should the, you know, the state implement kindergarten or something like that.
So you didn't give me what you suggested giving me. So one of the things though that what we mentioned back here, and I didn't necessarily go into details because I don't want to be premeditated about this because we want to see what the data leads us to, is the potential of a capital project proposal. And a capital project doesn't necessarily mean only building a new, brand new anything. It could also mean additions to existing. And so when we look at that, all those things are wide open in terms of you know, what's easier and what's more, when I say easier, probably the wrong word, what's more effective? Is it to add to existing spaces and or build, or to add to existing places and build? And if we're going to build, what are we building? And recognizing that whatever we do, be it addition and or new construction, we're not concerned about the existing capacity we have. We're concerned about how do we build enough, if you will, capacity for future growth. And so we almost have to kind of think about this, you know, it's buying your 5-year-old child summer clothes into winter. You can't buy them for the size they are now. You got to buy them for the size you think they're going to be in the summer. And so the same kind of thing. I use that analogy because to make the kids focus. So we can't say what we buy now. It's going to be 5 years from now. What's they're going to be the potential capacity piece, much less 10 years from now. So always trying to build forward. And sometimes it's hard for people to grasp. Let's say, and so part of this process too is how do we provide that thorough explanation. So great point, and so this is a big part of the recommendation piece too that will come from that Futures Committee. So again, I just want to show this piece, and this is just some data on the last time we moved. You clearly see every building was impacted as a result of it. Shattucon wasn't populated. In fact, Shattucon was just coming online. So just give you some flavor. So when we start talking about redistricting, it is something that in fact has a ripple effect on every building, and so as we move forward, so we'll continue the conversation, looking at everything from every data points that we possibly get our hands on. We look at and trying to figure out what's the future growth, and how do we try to identify efficiencies that we can, and how do we try to create boundaries that provides us capacity at least for the next decade. And in one of the Futures Committee meetings, I mentioned to the folks that I want to know where we'll be in 2030, and people kind of thought like, Robinson, you're nuts, until I reminded them that that's our kindergarten class. And the people are like, oh, yes. And so therefore, we have to think about that in that 10-year perspective very quickly, or in this case, that 12, 13-year perspective very quickly and plan for it. So again, just want to bring the board up to snuff, because once we start these processes, conversations start buzzing around, and I think it's important for people to understand that it's a very deliberate process that we're taking to offer whatever recommendation that comes to the board, and subsequent action by the board, which drives whatever action we take beyond that point. Thoughts, questions, concerns, criticism?
You mentioned having two people that basically spent a lot of time, just as kind of like the brain behind this, and then it seems like different stakeholders have conversations, and then they factor that in. Is that sort of the model you're thinking?
Yeah. So we will have, again, similar to, we have a pretty wide committee now for futures. Once we go down the shore to be districting, we'll have a pretty extensive committee, but with parameters. The reason why, because what we can't afford to do is what I call political and personal scope creep. Yeah. Where every person come in with their individual idea, and then we end up with this and nothing at all. Yeah. Versus going into it with some clear parameters in terms of every suggestion idea has to be tested against something. So at the end of the day, we can plan for it and actually make it happen, and not having a pretty extensive plan that we can't implement with fidelity. And so that's going to be one that was very successful for when we did this in 07, 08. And so we have a tried and true model, and we want to replicate that process as much as we can. Recognize some certain factors have changed. Information access is a lot easier now than before. So we'll try to duplicate the things that were very good and do those things moving forward.
Thinking of the composition of the Futures Committee, the thing I think that distinguished the redistricting committee from that committee was that there was more representation of building level administrators and parents.
Yeah.
Other than that, that pretty much was a cross-section of the kind of people that needed to be there.
Yeah, we had educators, administrators, teachers, parents on those committees to get feedback. So yeah, and again, not to sound callous, it's not a political process. It's a very practical process that we go through, because we're making a very practical decision that we have to be able to execute with fidelity. So, and I say that because oftentimes people get committees and they turn into these, popularity contests where the wind is blowing, and this is not a popularity thing. It's a very practical thing that's driven by some identified needs.
How long do you anticipate, or when do you anticipate?
Well, I mean, right now, our Futures Committee, we won't have a recommendation from the Futures Committee till the end of this year, assuming that everything flows the way they should. So with that being said, if we just hypothetically look at that and say next fall, we start this conversation, we redistrict it, and if we're just absolutely on top of our game, and we go through it, and next till January of 20, we offer some recommendation. You're not talking about implementation until 2021. So as I say that, so sometimes people think, why it takes so long? When you think about it, it does literally take that long. So it takes that long to address most things that you're going to do in a very large way. So again, just want to share that with the board. Since I'm standing here, just want to briefly remind the board, I won't walk through it. We're gearing up for probably, I would say, the most critical discussion in terms of forward planning, because we have the great ideas, but if we can't finance it, those things don't happen, and certainly don't happen in the way that we would like them to happen. So I just wanted to share with the board, you have a copy of your budget calendar. And so right now, we started some preliminary conversations at a principal's meeting with supervisors, just some preliminary getting ideas, so part of my next steps with the board will be start talking about budget assumptions with the board, and after we do an enrollment piece. So as you see here in November, we start talking about budget assumptions and expectations. So what we're doing right now internally is having a lot of internal conversations, and the time is great now because people are now settled in, and we know all the things that's going very well, and we know all the things that we said, boy, we wish we could have, should have, would have. And so now that's how do we plan forward. So every year the cycle builds on itself. So it's a continuous improvement type model. And so we have a lot of those conversations right now as we speak. And so tonight is just sharing with you the board, the budget calendar, and you'll see a lot of things happen prior to us even having the first conversation here at the board table. And so sometimes people say, hey, where does all this budget work go? There's so much internal discussions and conversations in terms of what's feasible, what's not feasible, what's working. Those things happen. So you just kind of again, I want to just kind of briefly walk and show that there are a lot of people engaged in the process. So all these people are charged with getting information, as you see over here in the process. So it's not, as I say, the superintendent recommendation to the board, and then the board adopts the budget. There's a lot of folks engaged in the conversation process to gather a lot of information, a lot of what-if analysis to make sure that once we start having these conversations at the board level and making recommendations, we're pretty confident that the things that we're saying in February and March to be adopted in May, to be implemented in September, going to hold. So think about that process for a second. And so we make a decision in January or February for next September. And so therefore, we have to really, really think through it to make sure that what we're thinking is going to hold, not only in September, but for the whole year coming. So again, I just want to share this with the board to know that the process has started, and also for the public, because I think sometimes people see this May date and think, well, that's all the process is about is when they see this public document comes out, versus the process is a pretty extensive process. And this is true our evaluation of our system. We evaluate the system, the effectiveness of programs as we're going through these things, because things that are doing very well, we want to do them better. Things that are not doing so well, we ask that question, why not? Do we keep doing? Do we do something differently? And thirdly, what are the enhancements we add to make the education experience better for kids? Any thoughts, questions from the board? So thank you.
Okay. At this time, I'd like to go to our only action item, which is contracted services, special education, early childhood education center. Motion to take this one to the floor. Ms. Miller, second. Ms. Rajat. Any comments, questions on this? None? All in favor? Okay. That passes. At this point, I'll make a couple quick announcements before asking for a motion to adjourn. One is majority of us will be going to the New York State School Board Convention this week, so we look to come back a lot smarter, more knowledgeable about what the hot topics are. And one thing I forgot to mention at the beginning is we did hold an executive session to discuss a personnel matter, so that can be put into the record as well. Can I have a motion to adjourn? Christina, second. Costa, all in favor? Okay, meeting adjourned. Thanks.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you.